So the course is a blend of lenscraft, and how I describe lenscraft is the technical and creative skills of photography and filmmaking. So we blend that, the technical side and the creative side, and we deliver it in this Arts Institute setting because we're the Institute of Arts at the University of Cumbria. So we've got lots of different creative courses here, of which this is one. And so we blend that with fieldcraft, and that's super important because on wildlife photography and filmmaking, it's really crucial that you understand your subject matter and you understand the locations to find wildlife and you understand their habitats and behaviours. So we also teach you wildlife identification, tracking, behaviour, biodiversity, ethical practice as well, because we want people who put conservation and the care of wildlife first. So it's not all about getting fantastic footage at the expense of wildlife. It's about knowing what's best when you're out and about in the environment and not leaving an imprint that's negative. So that's the lenscraft side of it. We also have a very outdoor classroom approach. So we're very much out and about. You do have lessons sort of here at the campus, and we do have theory lessons. And we do, like I say, learn a lot about wildlife and about filmmaking and about photography, but you are also out a lot on field trips and learning practically. So lots of field trips and work and project work out on location. You're outdoor media specialists. So students like that practical approach, putting their learning into practice. And we do have 100% coursework element. So there's no pressurised scenarios like exams where you have to cram lots of knowledge and sort of perform under pressure. So, like I say as well, we're a very creative community. We've got an open day here happening right now, and all the courses here tend to collaborate and work together. So we really like that interdisciplinary element as well. So you might be working with filmmakers, you might be working with performing artists, you might be working with games designers and animators, and you might even be working with graphic designers when you come to making posters and marketing your work. So it's a very interdisciplinary, collaborative, creative place. Our unique sort of selling point really of Cumbria for this course is it's just such a wonderful place to study wildlife. So we're here with the Lake District National Park on the doorstep. We're here with Scotland in easy reach. Over in Northumberland, there's the biggest forest in Europe, Kielder Forest. So it's a wonderful place to be. And the Lake District isn't all sort of about lakes and mountains. There's a very diverse range of habitats. So that means a very diverse range of species. We're also a World Heritage Site landscape now. So that's a brilliant sort of accolade really for the level of sort of culture and history as well that's abundant in the landscape. And we also offer as well on this course lots of chances to work with employers. So professionals who are in the industry working as wildlife photographers, working as filmmakers, bloggers, vloggers, journalists and the like. And also you might want to go into hands-on practical conservation roles as well when you've graduated. So we do lots of preparation for those sort of roles as well. So, what sort of skills do you learn? So you learn equally the wildlife filmmaking and wildlife photography, but you also learn other skills like writing, website design to a degree, blogging, vlogging, those content creation, digital skills that are so important for all sorts of employment roles these days, and as well the wildlife identification and natural history knowledge. So you do master complex technical and practical skills because filmmaking and photography are complicated in themselves, but you're also alongside that developing your natural history knowledge, and that's all within a very supportive community. We're not a place where you will sort of struggle and disappear. We're very supportive of individuals. We're quite a small focus university, so there's lots of student support. And the course allows you to focus on your interests, which is really lovely. So you might come to us particularly interested in macro photography or macro filmmaking, or you might really want to know and do more work about a particular species that you feel really, aware of or are worried about from a conservation point of view. There's a particular story you might want to tell in a film or set of photographs. And we really want you to bring your ideas to us and to the table. So there's a chance for you to really personalise the degree and make it really your own, which I think is lovely. And yeah, we cover a very wide variety of species, habitats and behaviours, and it's just a wonderful location to be based. So this is what we want you to be when you graduate. We want you to be really confident, used to working and doing risk assessments, health and safety practice, be a confident practitioner, perhaps even prepared for lone working out on location or team working out on location. Media professionals who are wildlife media filmmakers and photographers have to be prepared for the unexpected and have to plan and contingency plan. So you have to think about the kit you're using, what would happen if the kit didn't work, a bit like some of the technical issues, you know, sometimes everyone's experienced over the last couple of years. So you have to be really prepared. You also have to be really prepared for to make the most of things that might happen, like what if wildlife suddenly appears you didn't expect to see, etc. So you want to be really technically proficient, creative with a really good creative eye, and also really aware of the different wildlife that's around us. And we want you to have fun, because it should be about fun as well. So we do some outdoor adventure sort of camping. You know, we're always out and about in the Lake District and beyond, like I say, Scotland, the North East, Yorkshire, all around this area. And yeah, just lots of team working with other people, because great results are often achieved together. So you can solo work and create your own films and photography on your own, but it's also wonderful to work with others. So it's a really fun, you know, course with a lot of freedom as well artistically for you to choose your topics. And whenever we can, make the most of opportunities to meet people and work with professionals. You know, we do take them on. So this is a shot here of the Countryfile crew. So you've got Ellie Harrison that you might recognise there from the TV as a professional presenter. And then we've got sound man, we've got the cameraman, we've got the researcher there with a notebook. And the other people in that photograph are our students who were all involved that day of filming. It was for the programme Countryfile. And it was a brilliant professional experience for those students to sort of job shadow and sort of see how that crew worked together professionally out on location. So that sort of experience is something that we always like to make the most of, is if that's possible, if things are happening in the area, we'll get you involved with them. And like I said, we do a lot of practical trips and visits, so it's very outdoor classroom focused. So whether it's down the road on a trip by foot, looking at invertebrates, looking at pollinators, Alex will be able to tell you a little bit more about things like that later on, or whether it's a trip a bit further afield. So this is a trip over to the Farne Islands, which is a mecca for seabirds, a wonderful area. You can hear it and smell the Farne Islands before you actually see it on the boat. So it's just, you know, absolutely awash with seabirds of all different species. And these students were here for a practical visit. They also took part in, you know, a visit to the actual island, and actually also did some underwater, some swimming and photography of the seals. And then I just wanted to show you at this point just a couple of images, because we're all about sort of images and the power of the written word and the power of filmmaking, but often it's just a single image that is really powerful and tells a big story. So there's a selection of images coming up from a student who's currently in year 2, who has provided us with some wonderful work over the course of the last sort of year. All of these species on the doorstep in this area. So we've got a roe deer, some wonderful dipper, and there's an adult feeding its young there. So sometimes it's not all about the closely cropped sort of portrait of an animal, which is still wonderful to have, but it's about what interesting behaviour can you show, and what environment can you show, and what issues can you show. So this is a lovely sort of action shot, isn't it, of that animal's behaviour. A red squirrel, who are very prevalent in the area, one of the strongholds in the country for red squirrels here. And we've got a stoat here having a bit of breakfast in a wildlife hide scenario. We do think photography from wildlife hides is great, but we also want to think about the good ethics and practices of using hides and using things like food to attract animals. So that's another thing we'll talk to you more about on the course. And sometimes it's different shots. This is an action shot, blue tits in a nest in a sort of more urban environment in a brick wall there, which is lovely because it's not necessarily the traditional usual shot of a blue tit you might think about, but it's showing you some different interesting behaviour, and also how a wildlife living alongside us. A lot of the interesting things that I think are good to scrutinise and talk about is how humans sometimes have conflict with wildlife. So that was an interesting one from that perspective. This is a lovely grey wagtail. Again, not a sort of typical shot, but an action shot with some beautiful sort of creativity in the composition. So just things that make your images a bit different, always worth thinking about. We've got a goosander there with their young. That will just be on the River Eden, because we're a very rural location, the campus, and we have the confluence of 3 rivers on which you can see a lot of wildlife, because river habitat is great for wildlife watching. There's another little close-up of the chick. And a roe deer again. So beautiful habitats abound. You know, you can walk from the campus here and in 5 minutes be in lots of lovely rural locations for wildlife. Although, like I say, not always about rural wildlife, but what wildlife is on the doorstep as well, and what wildlife is in urban areas is often really wonderful to see. We've got otters that actually come into the waterways in the city centre of Carlisle, which is fantastic to see. So, other things I'd like to mention about the course and what makes it quite unique and different are things like our industry and employer links. So we have a very close working relationship with Cumbria Wildlife Trust. We're actually hosting a conference here in September, which is going to bring people from across the country who are expert in pollinators and bees in particular, which, as we all know, are such a fundamental aspect of life and pollination and flora and fauna. So these experts are going to come here to the campus, and there's going to be a day-long conference and also an event in the evening, and also an exhibition in our gallery of students' work, which is all about pollinators. So we have a really close relationship with the Cumbria Wildlife Trust that leads to really lovely activities and opportunities for the students. So we also visit there right at the beginning of the academic year in Welcome Week, and we do projects throughout the year. So that's a really lovely partnership, because that's our conservation organisation on the doorstep. We've also got really good links with things like the RSPB, the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust, sites of special scientific interest, and also areas of natural beauty throughout the region. Like I said before, we tend to do trips throughout the area, northwest, northeast, and also south Scotland. So lots of fantastic places to visit. So we also have really good links with a local gem, which is Tully House Museum, which is also our Cumbria Biodiversity Data Centre. So it's where you should submit all your records of all your wildlife sightings. And that's a fantastic place. Its collection is nationally designated. It's got such a brilliant natural history collection. So there's lots of visits there involved too. And they do a wonderful talk series that goes throughout the year that we really encourage students to go to, and meet fellow naturalists and experts, because those people might feature in their films and their photography, or just give them really brilliant advice. So it's all about really maximising your contacts and your opportunities while you're here. And there's just a couple of the organisations that we collaborate with there. One of them as well listed is the Royal Television Society. And we do always look for competitions and professional endorsement of our students' work. And we always enter some of our students' films into that Royal Television Society award, and have a really good track record of students' work getting highly commended or other sort of awards in that, which is really good. So, our environment is very creative. So we're not a business school environment, we're not a sort of generic university environment, we're arts institute. So the other courses on campus include things like games design, we have all sorts of media courses. We've got film and television, which we collaborate with regularly. We've got animation, we've got all sorts of wonderful courses that you can get involved with. And the students do collaborate and work together on projects. There's a module in Year 1 called Collaborative Brief, and that's actually a project where students from different courses work together, because that echoes professional working life. It's about collaborating, and it's about working with a team of fellow professionals. So there's lots of opportunities to do things like that. Also, there's lots of opportunities to put on exhibitions. So we've got fantastic exhibitions. We've got a wonderful gallery space here that hosts shows. At the moment, at this time of year, the whole campus is an exhibition, because the whole campus is open to the public for the degree show at the end of the academic year. So all of the graduating students put up their work to celebrate and display. So there's lots of things going on this time of year. And we've also got lots of things like lovely display cabinets around the campus where we put up work. So we also always want to showcase students' brilliant work, because it's really inspiring to see. We also have a theatre on campus for events, which is a brilliant sort of space. So a large theatre which has professional productions in it and student productions in it as well. Like I say, we've got our campus gallery. And we also do film screenings really regularly for students. So we regularly film screenings on we regularly screen films on a Wednesday afternoon. And I mentioned before about the Royal Television Society. We do want you to enter your work and get that professional recognition and endorsement. So lots of things exist for wildlife media, things like the Wild Screen Festival. Obviously, the really amazing the British Wildlife Photographer of the Year Award. That's always done at the National History Museum every year. And that's the sort of thing we aspire to our students entering. But there's all sorts of different awards and different levels of competition. So we encourage you to do that and get your work out there, get it out into the public domain. And another thing that's amazing for that is obviously just online. So we encourage students to have a professional website, to have really good aligned social media presence that's sort of branded and well linked together. And so graduates leave us with that professional identity online, which is so important because that's your sort of shop really, isn't it? That's your way of connecting to people and getting business and getting future work. We've also got a really nice community feeling here. So students do things for themselves and in their own time. They do extracurricular things. So in addition to your studies and your modules that are a component part of your degree, you can get involved with extra things. So here we've got the Wildlife Society. So it's run by students for students. They design their own logo. They've done things like design their own hoodies. They organise their own trips. They get speakers in. So it's that enhancement and extracurricular things which can really make the most of your time at university. So we'd encourage you to go to everything, get involved as much as you can, and the Wildlife Society is a fantastic opportunity. So lots of extra trips and activities can be done as part of that as well. And practically on campus, we've got a wonderful outdoor environment here. We're just on the periphery, the edge of the city, and there's lots of practical habitat and conservation activities that we do regularly. So we've just had an event planting 150 wildflower plug plants. That was done in association with Cumbria Wildlife Trust. So we do events like that regularly. We tree plant regularly, and we do regular surveys of the wildlife. Alex, who will chat to you in a bit, she puts up camera traps to monitor the wildlife that's around. So we're always doing wildlife-friendly activities on campus as part of the Wildlife Society. So it's something that I'd really recommend students get involved with here. It's just an extra dimension to your time while you're here. And what are the resources that we've got here? So students are visiting as part of an open day right now to look around the rooms. I can tell you a bit more about what we've got here. We've got a base room and that's next to the staff office where you're always welcome to study, have little study groups, tutorials and things and work together. We've also got in our main building lecture rooms, of which this is one that we're in right now. We've got a really well-stocked library, lovely refectory area, reprographics area for printing. We've got a lovely theatre gallery, like I mentioned before. We've actually got an art supplies shop as well, a one-stop shop for all your art resources. So we're really well sort of resourced in all of those ways. We've got open access IT resources for you to access and work in, and also we've got specialist media suites. So I can tell you a little bit about our media resources now. We've got a reception staffed by really helpful staff who help you in office hours, 9 to 5, 5 days a week, with accessing the resources, booking out the equipment. We've got an equipment store there, and we've got all the cameras that you start with and then progress with in terms of more complex equipment. So we've even got things there like gimbals and drones, and you don't need, when you join us, you don't actually need any expensive equipment. You need just bring the camera you've been using yourself so far, and then we can advise you on further equipment if you'd like to purchase different things down the line. There's no compulsion to have anything in particular that's high tech, because we've got all of that for you to use. We've got edit suites, we've got a TV studio, and then also we've got a wonderful photography area where you can do traditional darkroom things as well as more modern high-tech stuff. So it's got all the lighting tech and darkroom facilities there, and lots of staff to help you. Again, a full-time technician who's very, very knowledgeable. And then we've also got a variety of seminar rooms for meetings and events and activities and study, independent study as well. So this is just a couple of visuals of the campus facilities in terms of the media department. So we've got the AV resource area staffed all week with the really brilliant technician support. And we've also got the induction programme that we offer. So we have a skills programme when you join us. Lots of people who join us for wildlife media, you've maybe done more photography than filmmaking. Filmmaking is a new skill and people can be a little bit sort of, unsure about it. But we give you that skills foundation. So we cover camera, lighting, sound and editing and post-production. We've got a wonderful TV studio with broadcast quality content, whether in studio or out on location, because obviously you guys doing wildlife media, you go out and about a lot, so a lot of it is about getting out and using equipment in the field. We've also got broadcast standard cameras, like I say, Canon C200s, Panasonic GH5s, and all of the equipment you need, including any lighting and sound equipment to be working out on location. So lots of equipment here and no need to sort of bring anything with you apart from maybe just the camera you're using now at the moment yourself. So the academic year is a little bit different to sort of school and college. So we actually have a semester system. So you have 12 continuous weeks from joining us. So you start in September, go to Christmas, have a break. Then you come back January and go straight through to May, but you do have a break at Easter. But each academic year has 6 modules to complete in the main. This course has one module that's actually a double module. So in your final year, you have your final major project, and that module is your sort of graduate level skills project, so a bigger film or a bigger set of photos. But generally, each academic year has 6 modules in it. And for every module, there's lots of guidance, lots of help. You have face-to-face seminars once a week. You also have lots of reading set and, you know, things to sort of research in your own time, so a level of independent study. And also, you have a weekly schedule of trips and things throughout the whole semester. You get a timetable at the beginning of the year that says, you know, what week you'll be doing what. So that really helps you organise your time and yourself. And Blackboard is something we use, which is a virtual learning environment. So lots of reading activities are put on Blackboard for you to keep up week to week and also get ahead and get on top of your work, keep on top of your work and be reading quite a bit as well about your subjects. So your journey on wildlife media is very supported. So we never want you to feel, we want to challenge you, and we want you to learn these new things that you've come to join us to learn, but we also want to support you. So it's a blend of challenging you and supporting you a lot. So in year 1, we introduce a skills training, so you do the camera, lighting, editing, sound, post-production training. We have a module that goes throughout the entire year in year 1, which is about your naturalist skills and your fieldcraft skills. And also we have a module called media craft skills, where you're getting hands-on time with the equipment to learn and do a bit of team working. So it's all about settling in, bringing the new equipment to you and sort of making sure you feel comfortable learning about photography and filmmaking from the beginning. And then we do challenge you a little bit more to work more independently and to do work that's more on your initiative. So what do you want to do? What species do you want to cover? What issues in wildlife and the environment do you want to highlight? So more and more throughout the degree journey, you can actually negotiate what you'd like to cover really on your modules and make your degree focused about. The course has been recently revalidated to ensure it's quite current with what people expect out in the film and TV industry and wildlife media industry. The revalidation noted good practice and best practice on the course, so lots of practical hands-on opportunities to learn and put your learning into practice. And we have good, relevant, commendable expectations of students and what they should achieve while they're here, and give detailed feedback and, you know, also support you a lot through your journey. So I do think the University of Cumbria, in all its courses, and this one, as part of that, do support learners really, really well. So it's that mixture of supporting you and challenging you. So in year 1, like I mentioned, media craft skills covers your camera, lighting, sound, edit, post-production work. People join us from really diverse backgrounds. So you might have done more photography or a bit of filmmaking, or you might have even come from an animal management course, because we do have quite a lot of students join us from that background. And that's brilliant because you have all of the natural skills, field work sort of skills. But everyone comes from a background where they might feel a little bit unsure about an element that we're covering, because our course covers so many different things. So I would just like to say to anyone out there listening about, you know, joining us, you do not need to worry about having done some things more than others, because we really do give you a lot of support in that first year. So developing photography practice, that's the module we have in year 1. That's all year long, and that's all about your wildlife photography skills and your fieldcraft knowledge. And we also have an all year long module with Alex, who will have a word with you shortly, and that's our spine of natural history knowledge with lots of fieldwork and trips, and that ensures fieldcraft is really learned alongside the practical skills. We also have a module called Cultural Contexts in semester 1, And that's lectures by staff from across the Institute of Arts. So that's really good for meeting everybody, learning everyone's skills and interests, and learning from all of these different interdisciplinary sort of experts. So you'll have talks about narrative theory in terms of media, or you'll have talks about sort of representation in the media and how we have to think about what's shown and what we learn from what's shown on the television or the in other forms of representation. You'll also have sessions as part of that module about exhibition and display and how to organise exhibitions, etc. So there's all sorts of interesting elements you're learning from all sorts of staff across the Institute there. We've also got Communicating the Natural World in semester 2. That looks at narrative theory in a bit more depth, how to develop a story. Because it's not just about high quality footage, it's not just about looking at wildlife. What story and what message and what call to action are you actually wanting to get across to people, and what positive change you want people to make. So we need to always think about the stories behind what we're doing. And it's also interesting to think about how the media represent the natural world. How do they represent different species? Are some more positively portrayed than others? Things like that are really interesting to look at. And there's a module as well towards the end in semester 2 of the first year, which is your collaborative team working module I mentioned before. So there's lots of chances to excel and work on your own, but also lots of chances to work with others as part of teams, really. And that's what the professional world of work is often all about, is working well with other people. Year 2, Bettina Talbot, who's a specialist international documentary maker, she teaches a module about documentary, which is fantastic, because you're looking at wildlife documentaries that have been made, you're looking at how they work, what makes a good wildlife documentary, really sort of breaking that down. And she wants you to work with increasing independence and creativity. So you learn the skills, and then she wants you to sort of suggest what you would like to do your work about more and more. So like I say, that freedom and that creative input from you is really important as well. Wildlife photography is a module at that next year level, which is more specialist, more practical photography skills, building on the first year module. And then we've also got a professional development module. So what do you need to do to get employment in this area? How do you think about your employability and maximising that? How do you make yourself as employable as possible? Are you actually someone that's quite enterprising and wants to think about setting up your own business? A third of people in the creative and cultural sector are self-employed. So we also talked to you a bit in that module about self-employment, freelance work, business startup. And then we've got a module which prepares you for your dissertation and your research in the third year. So you've got a module, theory and research methods, and that's about thinking about what particular issue or debate or current topic do you want to explore in a bit more detail in your dissertation. And again, your input and your choice is very high in that. You can do whatever you want to do, really. So negotiate with staff and then think about what you'd like to research in year 3. And there's also a year-long natural history filmmaking module. And that's a really exciting one because it contains an expedition element. So you can plan and then go on and complete your own expedition. And that can be to anywhere in this country, it can be abroad. We can help with applying to funding for that. So our students have got a good track record of getting Creative Travel Award funding. So just recently we had a student go, they were awarded £500 of support, and they went to Gibraltar and filmed Barbie macaque monkeys on Gibraltar for their film. There's other support available. There's something called the Bright Futures Award that we've got here as well. So we're always looking at ways we can support you to make your visions a reality. So natural history filmmaking is a lovely module with a bit of travel involved. Equally, you don't have to go to far-flung places and film or photograph exotic species to do well. So it's just really worth noting, you might want to do a macro photography project, and it might be somewhere very local to you, a local wildlife reserve, and that could still be an amazing project. So if you want to travel and explore and bring that into your natural history filmmaking module, you can, but equally, you don't have to. You can also remain closer to home. And at that level, there's a really good, again, year-long module, which is all about the natural history skills. So we're looking at, in terms of natural history skills, we're looking at animal behaviour at that level. And again, Alex will be able to tell us a little bit about that module, because that's another module of Dr. Alex Playford's, where we're looking at things like migration, how animals work as family units, how animals behave. And it's so important to not only understand that, but that's going to really enable you to maximise your ability to take really good film footage and photographs out in the field if you understand animals' behaviour. I mean, some animals are obviously nocturnal, diurnal. You know, some animals are always in riparian habitats, etc. So if you understand what you're looking for and how to find it, your chances of success are going to be much higher. And in the wildlife filmmaking industry, that equates to, you know, a better project in a better period of time, and you know, and things like saving costs if you're not having to go again to an area to try and film again because you didn't understand what you were doing. So very important to have those understandings and skills. And year 3, that's really all about your passions, your projects. You know, what do you want to do? Where do you see yourself going in the industry? There's lots of different roles. This course is really varied. So you could do projects which have almost a slightly journalistic slant to them, or you could do projects that may be issues-based, you know, photojournalism type things. You could do film projects about whatever topic you want to do them about. So, you know, just bear that in mind. There's such a lot of freedom in here as well. So you can tailor projects to your interests, basically. So you do a minor project short film module in semester 1, and then you're working at this point with more specialism and also more sort of smaller teams, but taking greater responsibility. So we still encourage you to work in teams even in year 3, because often it means that your product is higher quality. You make a better film if you're collaborating with others, bringing in their skills as well. But you're taking more and more responsibility and more different roles on. You also have a module called the Application of Media in Conservation, which looks at how media is used in conservation practice, and for that you study a particular site, a particular reserve. And then you also move on and do your dissertation research project in semester 2, which is higher level research and writing skills, and that feeds into your graduate project. Now, you can do for your graduate project, that's a double weighted project, so it's your big project at the end of the course. You can still have a choice there between photography and filmmaking, so if you still feel particularly passionate about photography, you can do that, or more passionate about film, you can do that. But the other opportunity there is to really link your dissertation research with your project. So we've had students do that really successfully. So, for example, someone this year did their research project about the media representation and perception of foxes in particular through sort of culture, and how that's often been a very sort of negative slant. So it's a very vilified sort of animal. So that was a really interesting dissertation. And then that supported their film project that they did for their graduate project, which is a wonderful film about urban foxes. So those two things can support each other. So he contacted lots of amazing experts, had lots of really interesting interviews, had lots of great footage, but both of those things helped each other. So you can think about that as well with your 3rd year. And also, we're really concerned that you present yourself professionally and have, like I mentioned before, a very good website, really professional social media, that you know how to produce high-quality images and exhibit them. So you also have a module called Festival and Exhibition in the 3rd year, which is all about your graduate showcase. So you put your work up, you know, your final project work, you exhibit that. And you know, people are invited to an event, a sort of private view event, to see that, and you can think about how you present yourself with business cards, etc. And also you can enter your work into film competitions and festivals, so there's an element of competition as well to that. So we're really focused at that level with your employability and trying to support you with your transition to getting a post-graduation employment role that reflects this course and your interests. So there's a couple of images here just to, before I hand over to Alex, to say a few words about her modules. A couple of images about some of the organisations that we collaborate with. So there's regular internships and opportunities at a lot of these organisations. Lots of wildlife camera men and women, part of the Guild of Television Camera Professionals. That's a really good industry sort of standard that people are part of. And there's lots of initiatives for getting people into employment. So there's a really good programme at the moment to get people into the UK film industry called Set Access. And things like the BBC, I mean, they have a lot of natural history wildlife content, and our students are always applying for those sort of roles, and many of them getting those roles, things like camera operators in the natural history unit, things like that. So that's a lot of the film roles. These are more of the wildlife photography and wildlife film roles. There's a really good network called the Wildlife Film Network, where if you're freelance in the wildlife film industry, you have a profile. So that's a really good one to look at to see the people who are working in the industry. You've also got the International Association of Wildlife Filmmakers. That's an excellent industry standard to say that you're a professional, that you've met their standards, and lots of people in the industry work are part of that organisation. And there's things like International Film Festival, Wild Pact, again, World Wildlife Day Showcase, wildlifefilm.com. Lots of these are things that you can enter your work into and get recognition by getting involved with them while you're still a student. And there's even an organisation that actually specialises in wildlife sound recording as a particular element of the industry. So there's lots of things to explore. And then also, if you want to know a little bit more about the photography side of it and wildlife photography, there's some great organisations to be part of there and to research. So there's an organisation for international, it's called the International League of Conservation Photographers. So a lot of the most amazing photographers around the world are part of that organisation, because that's saying that you are not only a fantastic photographer, but also you're very aware of conservation and ethics and things like that, and legislation, and you're not compromising wildlife to get your good photography. So that's a really interesting one to look at. And also things like the Amazing Standard, which is the British organisation, the Wildlife Photography of the Year Awards. That's brilliant and a great one to watch. I think it's on October time every year. And then there's also some light-hearted ones that's quite interesting to look at. You've got things like the Comedy Wildlife Awards of some of the funny photographs that people have snapped. So organisations to explore and think about, and ones that we would encourage you to have links with. And then that's the end of the presentation for now, but I'm going to just ask my colleague Alex to come up and just say a few words about her modules and her input, because Alex teaches at the University of Cumbria, and you also teach modules on this, the Wildlife Media degree. So you're getting that commensurate level of input that you'd get if you were doing zoology. So that's just a really interesting point to bring, because you bring the scientific skills and the natural history skills in, don't you, to this course, Alex? So come and tell us a little bit more about your input and your modules, and then I think there might be a bit of time for some questions towards the end. So I will just hand over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Yeah, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody who's listening online. So just to introduce myself, I'm Alex Playford, and I'm from a zoology and animal behaviour background, but very much enjoy teaching on this fantastic wildlife and media course. So you get to meet me in the first year, and I teach a module called Naturalist Skills, which is, as the word suggests, it will teach you the basic naturalist skills that you have. And what we do find is that students come in from all sorts of different backgrounds, like Laura was saying, and so some of you might have a real expertise already in one area, like you might be keen bird watchers, or you might have been collecting ladybirds in jars for years, or whatever your interests are, trees, plants, flowers, different flowers. So some of you will already have some interests, but we don't assume any prior knowledge here, so I really do start with the basics. And I really start off with this module thinking about how you look at the world. We do a session where we go out and do some nature journaling. We even do some drawing to get you to just slow down and look at everything, look right across the board. So even if you have got a particular passion already, we cover everything in this module. It's very seasonal as well, so we're in a fantastic location here, and we have to take advantage of what's going on at that time of year. So the way I've run it this year was we started off in the autumn, and we went out and we did some fungal forays, learned all about the fungi that are around and different ways to do that. We just used the campus. We've got our own wildlife area on campus. We went out and had a look to see what we could find. Tied that in, we went across to Rickaby Park across the road, had a little trip out there, and then we went further afield. We had a field trip to Derwentwater, to a very special site of scientific interest there, and had a look to see what we could find. And then the other way that you can approach these topics is we also went over to Fusel Street, where the zoology students work, and we have a close relationship with them. And we did a session in their laboratory, so we could use their microscopes, we could take some fungal spores which you need to identify fungi, and had a session there with them. So that, we started with, that was in the autumn. We've moved on then, I talk about different habitat types, how you can identify different habitats, which is really important. If you know what habitat you've got, that's going to give you clues as to what sort of animals are going to be there. So it's really important that you have a framework with which to understand different habitats. So we look at that on the naturalist skills module as well. And then we look at how to use keys. So we tried keying out and using guidebooks for different kinds of flowers and trees. And then we move along. I think by January we had a look at lichens. So we sometimes get involved with local enthusiasts and local groups. So we had a couple of very enthusiastic members from the Cumbria Lichen and Bryophyte Society, and we visited a little churchyard. Churchyards are a fantastic place for wildlife, so we had a trip there with those experts and had a look to see what we could find in the churchyard. Moving on, we kind of go through a journey through the living world. So there's a mix of lectures as well. So you're given a sort of the academic structure of how to identify what you see and what its place is in the animal world and how everything links together. So we do have lectures as well, so we mix it all up. And so then in the sort of January, February time, we had a trip over to Allenby Bay to have a look at marine wildlife. And we looked at that's an exposed shore there, so we had a go at identifying what we could find on the beach. We also found the honeycomb reefworm there, which is fantastic reefs that you get in Cumbria. So we look at wildlife in different sorts of habitat as well. And then we've got fantastic bird hides on campus as well that we use to look at the bird life. And then moving on from that, we had a look at mammals, how you classify mammals, and also how you survey mammals as well. So we tried some different approaches there on campus. We've set up camera traps. We did some footprint traps where you lay out little traps to try and see if you can identify the animals by their footprints. And we did camera trapping. We borrowed some boxes from zoology, which are called mustela, which you may have heard of, where you put some bait in and you set up a camera trap and you're hoping to catch weasels. We caught quite a few mice and other rodents, but that's one of the techniques that you use. So we look at techniques for surveying animals as well, because very often for wildlife and media, you need to find out what's there before you actually go out and sort of stake it out with your camera to take film or photography. It's useful to actually be able to survey and see what you've got. And then ending up now sort of towards the spring, we have been looking a little bit at pollinators as well, and we do some pollinator surveys. As Laura mentioned, we have a festival coming up this September, so we're busy doing a lot of wildlife recording for that as well. So that's another aspect to naturalist skills, is actually recording what you see, using things like iNaturalist, which can be a really good way of building up your knowledge, and also it's a way of organising all your photographs and records as well, because during this course you're going to end up with lots and lots of images of animals that you see and other types of wildlife, and you're going to have some way of sorting out and organising all of that, so you know where you saw things, you know what the seasonality was, you know what time of year you saw them, and you can go back and go and revisit sites where you saw something interesting before. So we talk about that aspect of it as well. So it's a very rich, very interesting module, and it sort of feeds into, as Laura said, to the other modules that you'll be doing, giving you those basic skills. So that module in the first year, it's all about really providing you with structure and framework for the living world, and the skills that you need to interpret it, and just learning a lot of basic identification as well, so you actually know what you're seeing, and you can caption it correctly in your photograph. And my aim as well is to make you just slow down and look at the living world at different levels and at different scales as well. So looking at the larger landscape, but also looking at the tiny, tiny things as well is a real focus. Then in the second year, so you've got that base now of being able to look at things and know where to find them and what they are. We extend that and we look at how animals and plants as well, I look at animal-plant relationships, how they actually behave, so that you've got sort of some theoretical understanding, an academic understanding of what's going on there. You know, what are the different mating systems that animals show? And I think that can help not just in giving you understanding of what you're filming or photographing, but also giving you ideas. So Laura talked about stories earlier, and throughout the course, you'll be developing narratives. If you know that a particular species has got some really interesting behaviour pattern in a certain way, so really complicated mating systems, for example, like dunnocks, tree sparrows, hedge sparrows, they have all sorts of different ways of finding a mate. If you know that, that's a nice thing to go out and look for, to film and photograph. So we look at many different aspects of behaviour. We look at migration, we look at mating behaviour, we look at foraging, we look at how animals communicate with each other, because it's not just the visual, of course. For many species, it's smell or sound that's important. We look at animal-plant interactions, which are really fascinating, and not just pollinators, but other ways in which animals and plants interact. Another topic I talk about in quite a bit of detail is animal activity patterns, because you don't want to be going out there to film and photograph at the wrong time of day. You want to know the subtleties of how your animal organises activities during the day, during the week, during the month, and during the year as well. Because of course animals can move around quite a bit, and again you need to be aware of what animals are going to be around at what time of year, whether they're migratory or whether they hibernate. You need to have all that knowledge as well. And so tied in with that module as well, it's a mix of lectures and theory, but also we do some field trips with a sort of behavioural focus. So this year we went to Caerlaverock, which is famous for its geese migrations. We've been out to a local nature reserve in the North Pennines, Geltsdale, where we set up camera traps and we looked at field signs and signs of otter, for example, we found. So we tie in those field trips there in the third year with a real behavioural focus. We also do touch on captive animals briefly, because sometimes in film and photography you are actually working with captive animals. How does that affect their behaviour? What are the stories you might like to tell there? And this year we went to Lakeland Wildlife Oasis and had a look at a project they're doing there with lynx, where they are using photography to take photographs of tracks, and then they're taking hundreds of images and then programming software to actually recognise those tracks from the photography. And the idea is the software and the computer imaging will get so good that you can fly a drone over a set of tracks and work out what the animal is. So we had to go at taking photographs of some of these tracks, as well as looking around at the animals that they had there, and thinking about how captivity might affect the behaviour of the animals that you might work with, or you might want to film or photograph, or you might want to raise awareness of their plight as well. As Laura mentioned, we have quite a strong conservation focus on this course as well, so very often these behaviours and wildlife recording might be tied in with some sort of practical conservation project as well. So I think that's just about it for me, but I'm happy to take any questions you might have about the naturalist animal behaviour aspect of the course.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, and if there's any questions, by all means, we'd love to field them now. If not, I'm just going to go back to the beginning of this presentation, or in fact I might just leave it on one of the nice images. There we go. Let's leave it on that image. Yeah. Great question. So we're really diverse, aren't we? So we do a level of journalism, a level of, obviously, a large amount of filmmaking, blogging, vlogging, creating digital content. The whole filmmaking industry is vast. And obviously there's the whole conservation side of things too. So you might feel really just passionate about wildlife and the environment and want to work in conservation. So students have gone to all of those different areas. We just had a graduation ceremony quite recently, and I was chatting to the attendees of that graduation ceremony, and they were working in various things. So someone was working over in Whistler in Canada in the sort of adventure media industry. Somebody else had just had an interview for BBC Wildlife Camera operator position and was waiting to hear. There's a gentleman who just graduated 1 year ago and works for Formula One, and he was off to Miami the next day. So people are doing all sorts of interesting things, sometimes very wildlife related, but equally are getting really good skills on this course to go for roles in other areas too. So you could say Formula One is quite different to wildlife, but I guess fast-moving filmmaking, unexpected challenges, all fits the bill. So yeah, we have people who very much go into the wildlife filmmaking industry, which is very growing. Lots of opportunities in that. We have also people who are freelance, have set up their own business. So it's really, really diverse, really varied. But I think it's a hugely, growing industry. And that's what the professionals are telling us that are coming to speak to you from the industry, just what a range of opportunities there are. And it's in front of the camera, it's behind the camera, it's the research to even get to the right place to get the camera turned on. So there's lots of different roles in this industry. And you can work with teams, you can work individually, you can be freelance. So many opportunities. It's the most diverse range of opportunities associated with the course. I feel like I've had experience with in like the 20 odd years I've worked at a university. It's really varied, and I think a lot of them are just very exciting and growing areas. So yeah, lots of opportunities. Right, thank you everybody for your attention. Thanks very much. And send any more queries to the University of Cumbria. Get in touch
if you've got any more questions.
Yeah, thank you. Do we know if that's finished now? Yeah, okay, thank you.